Hi there and welcome again to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about a foundational skill that sort of helps children to unlock the world of reading. And what is that foundational skill I'm talking about is none other than phonics. Okay, so if you are, whether you're a parent, you're a teacher, or you're just curious to understand a bit more on how phonics helps children or the importance of phonics, then stick right here to the end of the video, so you can learn all about phonics and why it is important as a skill for children to be able to read effectively. Now, what is phonics? Okay, so phonics is a method of teaching reading that sort of breaks the reading skills down into smaller chunks for children to be able to understand and to be able to utilize effectively. Now, there are different types of phonics. Okay, so you have embedded phonics, you have analytical phonics, and you have the systematic phonics. Okay, now in the UK, we tend to use systematic phonics a lot. In fact, that's the number one type of phonics that we use in the UK. And if you want to understand what these other types of phonics means, just send me an email and I will explain those to you. Now, so it's sort of a method of combining letters and sounds together to be able to read a word effectively. So rather than memorizing words to be able to read, you sort of combine letters or sounds together, and that way which is broken down into smaller chunks, and then that way the child will be able to read effectively. So for instance, we look at the letter S, which makes the sound S. Okay, so you break them, so things are broken into smaller units of sounds, and then you're also shown how to combine these small units of sounds to be able to make or read a word effectively. So now, why is phonics important? Okay, phonics is crucial because it gives children the tool to decode words. By decoding, I mean to be able to read words without having to memorize the word. Okay, remember I said there are different types of phonics. So there are some phonics where you are sort of asked to memorize words. So those words are not broken down into smaller units, smaller sections. You're just given a particular word and your task is to memorize that word. So whenever you see them, phonics, you have to look at the smaller units of sound. So you're taking each sound or the sound groups, and then you break those down, you learn those, and then you can combine those into a word to read effectively. So phonics sort of helps children to build a strong foundation to reading. Now, there have been so many research about which types of phonics work. Is it the analytical phonics, embedded phonics? Which one works better than the other? Now, as I said, it all depends on what it is the country is looking at, or the need of the child. But for me, I tend to believe that, and there have been researches around this area which you can go read and find out more about it. But for me, I tend to believe and sort of hold on to the systematic synthetic phonics, because for me, I believe that that's the easiest way to be able to make a child read. Now, phonics also helps them to recognize patterns in languages. Okay, so recognize patterns in languages. So for instance, you're looking at a particular word, you can begin to recognize patterns in the sounds, and then with that way, if you can read this word that has the sound, then the next word that has the same pattern, you should be able to recognize it and to be able to have a go at reading that word. Phonics also helps with your spelling and vocabulary. Okay, so because now you're able to read words effectively using phonics, that also transcribes into your spelling. So if you know that the word boat, you can break it down into boat, right? Then it also helps with my spelling, because then when it comes to spelling the word boat, I'm able to break that down into smaller chunks, and I'm able to spell or write that word using the smaller units of sounds that make up that word. So phonics has a whole lot of advantages, and why it's a preferred method, my preferred method, or other people's preferred method on how to teach reading. So how does phonics work in practice? Okay, so the first bit is I have my notes, sorry, as I'm looking down. So children sort of start by learning the individual sounds, okay? And for in the UK, we use a systematic synthetic phonics, okay? And this basically means that each of those individual sounds that children learn, so we're not just plucking sounds from different areas, okay? So these are broken down into units, okay? So you start by using the single sounds, and then when the children have learned single sounds, then you move on to more complex sounds, and on and on and on. So these are called single sounds. Then you have the diagraphs, then you have the triagraphs, and then it increases in complexity. So in the UK, we call them phase one. So you have phase one phonics, which is like the single sounds, a lot of single sounds, and the double consonants sounds. Then you have the phase two, then you have the phase three, you have the phase four, you have the phase five, and they have the phase six phonics. So the is a system that is broken down into little chunks, so that the children can be able to learn those and be able to use them as they go along. So another bit again of phonics in the practical way is the blending, okay? So one aspect of phonics is where you combine sounds together in order to be able to read a word. For instance, you have the word cat, okay? So we break the sounds into k, a, t, okay? And then we then blend that together, k, a, t, cat, 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 and you're able to read the words. So that is so the blending is when you combine those individual sounds together in order to form the root word or the main word. Now, the segmenting is also the bit where then you break the whole word into little chunks of sound. So the k, a, t, it's me segmenting the word cat, okay? It just basically means you're breaking down the word into units of sounds to be able to read the whole word. So you have the segmenting, where you break the little units of sound, and then you have the blending, which is where you then bring together those little units of sounds to be able to make the word. So this is like phonics in the practical elements of it, okay? Now, what are the benefits of phonics? So we've talked about why it's important. We've talked about how it works in the practical way. What is actually the benefits of phonics? Now, if a child can read, that sort of boosts their confidence, okay? So being able to read a word boosts your confidence, and it helps you to be able to decode unfamiliar words. So if you've been able to learn all of your phonic sounds, or the majority of your phonic sounds, and then you're able to begin to read CVC words or CVVC words, or you're able to begin to read little things, you find that it boosts your confidence as a child, and it helps you want to read more, want to sort of learn more, okay? So it's, for me, I find that it helps, and it encourages children to want to read and to try out unfamiliar words, because now you have a skill to be able to use. You have a skill that is in your fingertips that you can use to try unfamiliar words. So rather than when you see a word that you're not familiar, rather than just standing there and staring at it and looking at it and wondering, how do I pronounce it? The thing that comes to mind with most children that are taught with phonics is in their mind, they'll mentally break that word, they'll mentally segment that word into recognizable sounds that they know, and then they will try and blend that word to make the word, to blend the sounds together to make the word. Now, sometimes it doesn't actually work out right, but you can see them trying to use that skill to help them read. And as an adult, if they get it wrong, then you can show them and correct it so they can get it right. So they sort of have a skill to help them try words that are unfamiliar, rather than being stuck when they meet an unfamiliar word. Now, it also improves comprehension. Okay, if you're able to read effectively and understand what you're reading, then that boosts your comprehension skill. Okay, so when you understand the word structure, it helps you to grasp the understanding of what it is that you're reading. So using phonics, or learning through phonics, or using phonics as a means to learn how to read, also helps boost your comprehension skill as well, because now you can read effectively, and now you can understand the word structure. You can understand and grasp the meaning a bit more of what you are reading, rather than when you don't. Now, it also supports struggling readers. So you have some people who are struggling readers who find it difficult to assess reading. But then we found that research has also seen that when you go back and use phonics, teach them phonics and use that as a means to break that struggle, we find out that they tend to then catch it up quickly, and then they begin to sort of progress in their reading roadmap. Now, does phonics work for every child? No. Okay, no, but it works for the majority of children. Now, you might have some children who prefer to read, who maybe sight reading is better for them, and all of that. But phonics tend to work for the majority of children. And for others who don't, then you don't have to think of other skills or other forms of phonics to be able to help them read. Now, so for me as a teacher, how do I then teach phonics so that the children find it engaging? Now, phonics on its own is very engaging because I said they're usually 20 minutes long lessons, okay, not longer than 20 minutes, and they're usually fast-paced lesson. But within that, the children tend to grasp what they need to grasp. So as a teacher, you need to make it more fun and exciting. So some schools have schemes that they follow, or now the government has made whereby you can also, as a school, come up with your own scheme that works for you, and you can do that. So whatever it is that you're using, a scheme or you are using a program, whatever it is, try as much as possible to make it engaging and fun. I know that phonics can be very prescriptive because you have to follow a different way. So you have the sort of the roadmap on how you teach phonics. Of course, by all means, follow that roadmap, so that you sort of ensure that the children get what they need to get within that lesson. But at the same time, try and keep it fun, short, and engaging for the children. Now, the thing with phonics is repetition, okay? Repetition is key. Repeat, 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 and repeat. Don't say, okay, because we've learned this sound, we're not going to go back to that sound anymore. Repeat it, okay? Repeat and repeat and repeat and revisit things, okay? So that's how it sort of gets embedded in the mind, okay, and in the as a part of the skill. Repeat and repeat and repeat. So you've done phase one sounds, you can always go back at some point in time and pick random phase one sounds to revisit. And sometimes because you come across, not say, okay, we've learned phase one sounds, we're going to come across phase one sounds again. That's not true. You're going to definitely come across phase two sounds, not phase one. Phase two, you're definitely going to come across phase two sounds in every word and most words, okay? So the idea is you repeat and repeat, and also begin to show them the connections between letters and sounds. Another thing is to create time to read together, okay? So for instance, as a class, you might have, maybe at the end of the day, you have a shared book time, so where you story time to go home. So within that story time, where you're reading to the children, point out key sounds that have been learned in the phonics lesson. I do that. So if, for instance, I'm reading a book, and maybe for that day we learned the ow sound for shout, and I see the ow sound in a word, I'm going to point and I said, oh, can somebody tell me what is the sound? We did the sound today in our lesson. What is the sound? So that way you are revisiting the sounds that you have taught the children, and at the same time you are sort of exposing them a bit more to that sound in different contexts, so that it builds like a whole picture for the child. The next thing is to be patient. As I said, phonics can be quite fast-paced, and that fast pace doesn't tend to work for all children, okay? So be patient with the ones, as a teacher, you will know the children in your classroom. You will know the ones that need additional time, you know the ones that need additional support, and those ones you can create, maybe with your teaching assistant, you can create time so you can revisit things with them on a slower pace, so that they can catch up with the rest of the classroom. So be patient as a teacher, and be mindful of those who phonics does not work for, and then think of other creative ways that you can enable that child to access the phonics curriculum. So phonics for me is truly a game changer when it comes to teaching children to read and to write, okay? And as I've said, I think it's a very effective way to teach reading to children. And of course, the most important thing here is you want to instill a love for reading in your child. And what better way to do that by solidifying those sounds, those key sounds that they need in order to be able to read effectively. So for me, yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. If you found this video insightful, if you've got any questions about this, please feel free to leave that in the comment section or send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions or address any concerns that you have. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you sometime soon.